Good morning. Miss Laura here with Bartlesville Public Library for the weekly virtual story time. Woohoo! Here we go. Let's sing our hello song. Sing with me. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? How are you today? I'm doing very well today. I hope you are too. So, what we're celebrating this week is National Tell a Fairy Tale Day. So, Miss Melissa, as always, has put together a very fun activity packet about fairy tales for National Fairy Tale Day. Fairy tales are stories that have been around for a long, long time and that we've all heard and we all love. This packet gives you information about fairy tales, what makes them fairy tales versus being other stories. You can write your own story with a picture, but best of all, there's a really fun song in here. And I am going to sing it for you after our first book. Can you tell from the picture, if you're not able to read the title, can you tell from the picture what story this is? This is a really popular fairy tale. The Three Bears. And this version of The Three Bears was written and illustrated by Byron Barton. His pictures are always very bright and cheerful, I think. Once upon a time, there were three bears. There was, if you know it, say it with me, there was Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. One day, Mama Bear made some hot porridge. Do you know what porridge is? I think it's kind of like oatmeal. She made a big bowl of porridge for Papa Bear, a medium-sized bowl for Mama Bear, and a small bowl for Baby Bear. The porridge was very hot, so the three bears went for a walk until it got cool. Just then along came a little girl named Goldilocks. Goldilocks looked inside the house, and there she saw the three bowls of porridge. Goldilocks was hungry, so she tasted Papa Bear's porridge, but it was too hot. Then she tried Mama Bear's porridge, but it was too cold. Then she tried, you're right, Baby Bear's porridge, and it was just right. So she ate and ate and ate it all. Then Goldilocks wanted to sit down. First, she sat in Papa Bear's rocker, but it rocked too fast. Then she sat in Mama Bear's rocker. It rocked too slow. But Baby Bear's rocker rocked just right. So Goldilocks rocked and rocked and rocked and rocked, and she rocked so much the little rocker broke. Uh-oh. Then Goldilocks wanted to lie down. First, she tried Papa Bear's bed. It was too hard. Then she tried Mama Bear's bed. It was too soft. Then she tried Baby Bear's bed. It was just right. So Goldilocks fell asleep in Baby Bear's bed. A little while later, the three bears came home. The bears looked at their porridge, and Papa Bear said, "Someone has been eating my porridge." And then Mama Bear said, "Someone has been eating my porridge." And Baby Bear said, "Someone has been eating my porridge too, and now it is all gone." Then the bears looked at their chairs, and Papa Bear said, what did Papa Bear say? "Someone has been sitting in my chair." And then Mama Bear said, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." And Baby Bear said, "Someone has been sitting in my chair too, and now it is broken in pieces." Well, then the bears looked at their beds, and Papa Bear said, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed." And Mama Bear said, "Oh, someone has been sleeping in my bed." Then Baby Bear cried out, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed too. Look, there she is now." When Goldilocks saw the three bears, she jumped out of Baby Bear's bed and ran. She ran and ran as fast as she could away from the three bears' house. And the three bears never saw little Goldilocks again. I think Goldilocks learned a lesson. You don't just walk into someone's house when they're not home and you don't even know them, right? Crazy. All right, as promised, I'm going to sing you the fairy tale song that comes in your fairy tale packet that you can pick up here at the library. Are you ready? Now we're going to sing it to the tune of Jingle Bells. Okay? Once upon a time, in a land so far away, a princess kissed a frog. Well, that just made his day. Far across the town, Red Riding Hood took fright. She found a wolf in Granny's bed when she told her good night. Oh, fairy tales, read them every day. Oh, what fun it is to hear how Goldilocks got away. Fairy tales, full of joy and laughter. Do you know how this one ends? It's happily ever after. How fun. Thanks, Miss Melissa, for finding all this fun stuff in the National Tell a Fairy Tale Day activity packet. You can pick up at the Youth Services desk or call us from the curb. We'll bring you one right out. After the next book, I'm going to show you what next week's craft, Take and Make Craft, is going to be. But first, we're going to read another fairy tale. This fairy tale was written a long time ago by two brothers with the last name of Grimm. So the brothers Grimm are the ones who wrote a lot of fairy tales that we know today. However, that was hundreds of years ago. So this particular book is the same story, but by Jim LaMarche. And I love the illustrations, the pictures. This is called The Elves and the Shoemaker. Look at the fancy shoes on the back. The Elves, there they are, and the Shoemaker. This is one you may not have heard before. There was once a good shoemaker who, through a spell of bad luck, had become very poor. Finally, he had just enough leather to make one last pair of shoes. "Still, it is a fine piece of leather," said his... No, wait. I was using a man voice, but this is his wife talking. "Still, it is a fine piece of leather," said his wife, "as soft as butter, yet as strong as your hands." "Tonight, dear wife, I will cut the leather," said the shoemaker, "and first thing in the morning I will sew the shoes." The next morning, when the couple went into the workshop, they were flabbergasted by what they found. What a word, flabbergasted. That means they were just really, really surprised. There on the work table stood 2 shoes, perfectly finished, not a stitch out of place. But who? How? Sputtered the shoemaker. His wife could only stare. Just then, a dandy gentleman came into the shop. "What magnificent shoes! Please, I must try them on," he said. The shoes fit perfectly. It was as if they had been made just for him. He was so pleased that he paid double the price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 2 more pairs of shoes. What luck! Again that evening, the shoemaker cut out the leather for the shoes and went to bed. And once again, in the morning, there were the shoes, finished. Buyers were not lacking for these either, and as before, they were so pleased they paid double the price. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 4 more pairs of shoes. The next morning, just as before, there were the shoes already made. On and on it went. Whatever the shoemaker cut out in the evening was finished by morning. Soon the news of the splendid shoes spread throughout the town, and the shoemaker and his wife were no longer poor. One evening, not long before Christmas, as the shoemaker cut more leather for shoes, his wife spoke. "Dear husband, who has made us so rich? What if we were to stay up tonight and see who comes to our shop?" The shoemaker agreed. So that night they lit a small lamp in the hall, hid behind their coats, and waited. As the clock struck midnight, they heard the creak of a window and the scuttle of small feet. Peeking out from behind the coats, they saw 2 tiny children sneak into the workshop. They were poorly shod. That means they didn't have very good shoes. And they wore only raggedy sacks for warmth. "Elves!" the shoemaker's wife whispered. Well, those tiny elves tiptoed across the room and climbed up onto the table. Then, humming and whistling, they began to stitch and sew and hammer so quickly with their little fingers that the shoemaker and his wife could not believe their eyes. Hard at work. The elves did not stop until all the shoes were finished and stood lined up on the table. Sturdy riding boots, delicate slippers, feather-light dancing shoes, and heavy clogs for work. Then the elves tiptoed out of the workshop, up the stairs, and out the window. The next morning the wife said, "Those little elves have made us rich, so we must give them something in return. They run around with so little on they must be freezing. I will make a warm dress, coat, and pants, and knit them each a pair of stockings." "And I shall be happy to make them each a pair of fine shoes," said the shoemaker. They went right to work, and that evening they laid the presents on the work table. Then, like before, they hid behind the coats and waited. At midnight, the elves quietly slipped into the shop, ready for another night's work. But instead of pieces of leather, they found the beautiful presents. At first, they were too astonished to move. Then they hugged their new warm clothes and quickly put them on. Astonished is another word for surprise, just like flabbergasted. When they were dressed, they leaped and bounced around the room, singing, "Now we're elves so fine to see, no longer cobblers will we be." They jumped over chairs, raced around the shop, and finally ran out the door. The click and clack of their new shoes echoed through the streets. From that time on, the little elves were not seen again, but the shoemaker and his wife lived a long and happy life. And that is the end of the elves and the shoemaker. Okay, next week is Read Across America Day, which is also Dr. Seuss's birthday. It's every year on March 2nd. And sadly, we can't have our big annual party this year like we usually do. But Melissa has put together a craft. These will be available next week. Okay, they're not ready yet, but next week you can come and pick up a take and make craft kit that has everything you need to make a Cat in the Hat finger puppet. That is the cutest thing ever, isn't it? Okay. She's also going to put all of our Dr. Seuss books out on display for you to check out. All right, I have one more fairy tale to read you. Now, I will tell you this one might be a teeny bit scary. Okay? Not too bad. This is another old one. This particular version is written and illustrated by Paul Galdone. We have a lot of books by Paul Galdone here, and they're all fairy tales like Little Red Hen, Gingerbread Man, and this one, Rumpelstiltskin. Can you say that? Say it with me. Rumpelstiltskin. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a poor miller whose only treasure was his beautiful daughter. Now it happened that the miller had to go on an errand to the king. The miller wanted to make himself appear important. So he said, "I have a daughter who can spin straw into gold." "Well, that is a marvelous art," replied the king. "If your daughter is as clever as you say, bring her to my palace tomorrow, and I will put her to a test." When the king said that, the miller regretted his boast, but he knew he must obey the king's command. As soon as the miller's daughter arrived at the palace, the king took her into a room which was full of straw. He gave her a spinning wheel and some bobbins and said, "Now set to work, and if by dawn tomorrow you have not spun this straw into gold, you must die." He locked the door and left the miller's daughter alone in the room. There she sat, for she had no idea how straw could be spun into gold. As the hours passed, she grew more and more frightened. At last, she began to weep. All at once, the door opened, and in came a strange little man. "Good evening," he said. "Why are you crying so?" "Alas," answered the girl, "I have to spin straw into gold, and I do not know how to do it." "What will you give me," said the little man, "if I do it for you?" My necklace, said the girl. The little man took the necklace and seated himself in front of the wheel. Whir, whir, whir it went, and in 3 turns the bobbin was full. He put on another, and whir, 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 the second bobbin was full too. And so it went until dawn, when all the straw was spun and all the bobbins were full of gold. Then the little man slipped out the door. When the king arrived and saw the gold, he was astonished and delighted, but his heart only became more greedy. He had the miller's daughter taken into a larger room, which was also full of straw. "If you value your life," he said, "you must spin this straw into gold by morning tomorrow." The miller's daughter looked at the pile of straw and began to cry. Just then the door opened and the little man appeared again. "What will you give me," said the little man, "if I spin this straw into gold for you?" The ring on my finger," answered the girl. The little man took the ring and began to turn the wheel again. By next morning he had spun all the straw into glittering gold. The king rejoiced at the sight, but he was still not satisfied. He had the miller's daughter taken into an even larger room full of straw, and he said, "You must spin this too in the course of a night, and if you succeed, you shall be my wife." As he locked the door, he thought, "She may only be a miller's daughter, but I'm sure I could not find a richer wife in the whole world." When the girl was alone, the little man came for the 3rd time and said, "What will you give me if I spin this straw for you also?" "I have nothing of value left," said the girl. "Then promise me, if you should become queen, to give me your first child." "Who knows whether that will ever happen," thought the miller's daughter. So not knowing how else to help herself, she promised to give the little man what he wanted. Grinning, he sat down at the wheel and once more spun the straw into gold. Well, when the king came in the morning and saw all that gold, he arranged a grand marriage, and the beautiful miller's daughter became queen. A year later, the queen gave birth to a beautiful baby daughter. She was so happy with the child that she never once thought about the little man. But one day he suddenly appeared in her room and said, "Now give me what you promised." The queen was horrified and offered the little man all the riches of the kingdom if he would let her keep the child. But the little man said, "No, something alive is dearer to me than all the treasures in the world." At that, the queen began to sob so loudly that the little man took pity on her. "I will give you 3 days," he said. "If by the end of that time you find out my name, then you shall keep your child." The queen stayed up the whole night thinking of all the names she had ever heard, and she sent a messenger out to search far and wide for other names. When the little man came to the palace the next day, the queen began with Casper, Melchior, and Balthazar, and then said all the names she knew, one after the other. But to each one the little man said, "That is not my name." On the 2nd day, the queen learned the names of everyone living near the palace. When the little man came again, she selected the most unusual ones. Perhaps your name is Short Ribs," she said, "or Sheepshanks, or Lace Leg." But the little man always answered, "That is not my name." On the 3rd day, the messenger returned and told the queen, "I have not been able to find a single new name, but as I approached a high mountain at the end of the forest, I saw a little house. Before the house, a fire was burning, and round about the fire a little man was jumping. He hopped first on one leg and then on the other and shouted, "Today I brew, tomorrow I bake, the next day the young queen's child I'll take. Soon far and wide will spread the fame that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." How glad the queen was when she heard the man's story, the messenger's story. I'm having to guess, some of the words are torn off. She repeated the name Rumpelstiltskin over and over so she wouldn't forget. Rumpelstiltskin, Rumpelstiltskin. Soon afterward, the little man came and said, "Now, queen, what is my name?" At first she said, "Is it Conrad?" "Nope." "Is it Harry?" "No." "Then perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin." "The devil told you that!" cried the little man. In his rage, he stamped his right foot on the ground so hard that he sank to his waist. Then he stamped his left foot so hard that he disappeared from sight. The earth fell in on top of him, and Rumpelstiltskin was never seen again. The end. It was a little scary, but it had a happy ending for the queen. All right, again, this week is National Tell a Fairy Tale Day. We have these activity packets that you can pick up at the library, or we can bring you one to the curb. Lots of fun things. And then next week for Read Across America, Dr. Seuss's birthday, we will have these Take and Make Cat in the Hat finger puppet crafts. Lots and lots of fun. All right, everybody, it's been a pleasure. I will see you next week. Can't wait.